Hello viewers, you are watching a special program on the journey of the Zen ETV English service and the soon to be launched ETV language and its English service. My panels here are both from veteran staffs and the ones who have received the baton from them. Stay tuned and find out all about the past, present and future of ETV English. Just for formality's sake, I have to introduce you and I'll be diving into the questions after that. On my right, I have Sahaya Klilu, the head of Foreign Language Department at ETV and actually a chief editor of English language. And in the middle here is Mikhail Manasseh, a managing editor of Discourse Analysis, a quarterly journal that is focusing on African issues. And he also writes on different other issues related to politics of the continent. And I have Bezayati Yoel on the left side. She is currently heading English language programs desk, and she's also an editor. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
All right, as a veteran journalist, I have to start from you, Mikhail, because it all goes back to the time that you've been a reporter, you've been working as an editor too in here. So there are things that you have to tell us, taking us back into those times. You can begin by telling us what it was like to be an editor in here, and you can reflect upon the issues back then.
Thank you. First and foremost, I would like to thank you for inviting me here, and I'm glad to meet my former colleagues and friends here. It's been a long journey, and I would like to congratulate you on this important milestone that you find yourself in as you transition to the foreign languages service, and congratulations on your preparations towards that. As a news and a program desk, it has played a very important role in building Ethiopia's image. Of course, it has identified its role, identified its audience as being foreigners mainly living in Ethiopia and wherever the EBC or by the ETV broadcast reach all over the world. So by selling Ethiopia's image, the good things, the good assets we have, I think EBC English or ETV English has played a very important role. But being the seat of the African Union, being at the center of this nation and continent, I think the EBC or the ETV English could have played, I believe, even a bigger part in also becoming the voice of Africa, portraying the image of Africa. Because we have all the resources here, the resource persons converging in from all over the continent, here in Addis, which is very unique. No other country in Africa could be enjoying this, but we do. And we can set the agenda on all fronts, all the issues being raised here in this hub of the African continent.
We're talking about the past of the Zen ETV and EBC and the soon-to-be ETV language, and particularly the English department. And I believe as an editor working with different journalists in here, and you had a chance to see programs and news shows. Do you have any particular thing about those news shows or programs?
Meet EBC. The host, Tafara Gadamu, a very accomplished journalist and broadcaster, has been doing a very marvelous job, portraying Ethiopia's image and also delving into the real issues, a kind of hard talk like scene where he dissects all the angles, and it's very interesting to see, watch as a journalist, also learn from it. Other shows also like promoting tourism in this country, and also the diversity, the culture, the rich history of this nation. ETV English has done a lot.
All right.
And I think it can also do more.
All right. I think you're not feeling left out. Like
No, we're not.
okay. Coming to you directly, actually, you've been in here for 10 and plus years. Like, you can have a lot of experiences about the things that used to be done in here and that are being done in the present day as well. So how was it like as a fresh reporter? Take me to that time.
Well, you're making me feel older already, by the way, when you say like 10 years. Yeah, being a reporter at the English service for me was like, you know, telling the good story of your country and Africa in general. And me personally, I'm so passionate about this. And when you get to the ETV language English desk, you're definitely told to reflect this. It's not like Ethiopia or Africa don't have problems. We have problems, war, drought, and we have those stories for sure. But we do have good stories that needs to be addressed in different media outlets. But unfortunately, the medias doesn't cover such kind of stories most often. So this is your chance, you know, to tell your own story in your own way, and good stories coming out from here at the center, from the headquarters of the AU. So for me, it's so passionate thing. And the other thing, in our time, I would say there is a room for specialization. The thing, I think we should work on it now, because even if you are a reporter, you don't have to, you know, the privilege to choose where to join, but there is two segments, news and programs. And if you join programs like me, you'll be given one program or two, which is weekly, by the way, and you have to produce 20 minutes on average. And on a certain issue, you have to research and do the interviews and everything in between. So that gives you a sense of, you know, specialization. You have to focus on certain type of issues. Of course, you do news once often, when, for instance, in case of elections, you go and cover live elections.
So I'm just saying, like, you do have something to tell us about the time that you started here as a reporter, and take us through that time.
Thank you, Abraham. Sahai and Mikhail have said much of it, but it's always to go back in time and remember all the good times I had as a fresh journalist. And I started out as a journalist, and I was a fresh graduate 7.5 years back. So as I was a fresh graduate as well, everything here used to be so appealing and beautiful for me, and I have to learn much of the things from my seniors, and they were also very, very helpful. We used to cover events, we used to go for a field report and come up with certain ideas and news stories and also programs. But there were also challenges. The challenges start with the facilities itself. We used to use analog machines to do productions. So producing a 2-minute news story would take much of your energy, and it was tiresome. And also we have to focus on, as Miki has said earlier, we have to focus on events and also translation works, so which usually do not fit into the aim that I mean, our audiences are different, our targets are different from that of the Amharic department, but we have to translate and cover events. There was much lesser room for planned and projects, news and programs, so it was a challenge, but it was also a very fascinating thing to work as a journalist back then.
I think it's been around a year, so things are looking very good, I believe. So we've been engaged in different things. The journalists at ABC, both the Amharic and the other language, we're working hard on this thing. So what are we looking at?
Well, we're looking at different things in different perspectives, by the way. The big trend is ABC is going to have 7 major media outlets, including the new media and the online department. We have 3 radios and 3 television stations now, and there is a new media which is still working, but in a new format. It would be like a new form of media platform. So coming to our specific channel, ETV language channel, the change has to come in 2 major things for me. The first one is we never have a format change for about 15 years or so. By the way, English department was launched in the establishment of the AU. It has a big story in the African politics area and the Ethiopians as well. So from that forward, I think the format we are working on is the first one for me. So the programs and the news we have already for the last 15 or so years has to be changed, because we're going to have 4 hours per day English transmission hours, and that means we're getting closer to the audience. We need to have new formats that take into account the new audience. But that's what I want to say is the audience need to be engaged more than ever. Information is everywhere, but the information we give here has to have something to do with the country's progress and the continental progress as a whole. So for us, it's like 4 hours per day, and we do have big 3 news packets with different presentation, and I hope we're going to talk about that later. Right. But we have 3 big news packets. In the daytime we have 30 minutes packet, and in the evening we have 1 hour packet. Remember, we have only 20 packets now. Right. So in our packets, like Beza mentioned, most of our news are done in a very conservative way of doing things. I would say we go report, and much of our news programs comes from the Amharic section. Almost in our package, in 20 minutes, almost 60% of our news package are translated from the Amharic section. So we do have different kind of audience. If you say it so, we have to produce different kind of news for our different audience. So one of the reasons for the change, the format we're working on, to engage our audience more in our news package. So that 1 hour news package have different package from local to international. That the news is different because it's all about Ethiopia and Africa, giving a different perspective of some happening in our own way. So the reason we're going to have that bigger news hour is to make it a brand, like the other programs we've been mentioning. And the third package we have is the headquarter, and the name is bigger. We are a headquarter of the AU, and I would say we didn't exploit that much. We are expecting to engage our audience more, to create a platform so that they can come and talk. All right. Instead of us do the whole talking, and presenting, like preaching kind of stuff. But we do have good contents, by the way. For the last 15 or so years, we have been working so hard as a department and promoting Ethiopia, promoting Africa. But the way we present our content was not that engaging. So that's the major reason, I would say, why we need to change our format. All right.
There you've been talking about the presentations, saying the content as well. Yeah, the time has changed. Like, people have access to different global media. So when you have that kind of access, I think there is some need, a growth in demand. So do we have anything different in terms of content or presentation when we come into the new format?
Of course, yes. That's the major reason for our format, by the way. If you talk about our news, most of our news, our news package are going to be done in a different kind of presentation. We go to a certain kind of event, and we bring the reporter live in the studio with the anchor, and we do most of the news in a conversation manner, by the way. So that's engaging. And we're going to have permanent, sport kind of package in our news, so that we don't have a very serious kind of news presentation. Now and then we're going to have conversation. We're bringing in experts in most of the news, so that we can bring different perspective to the audience, not only our own perspective but our audience perspective. That gives us a chance to bring variety to what we bring on. And if you talk about the news programs, the news affairs programs, we're going to maintain Close Up, by the way. That's one of our brand program, but we're going to make it twice a week to give the audience a fresh perspective of what's happening. What's happening explained in our point of view and the audience point of view. So Close Up, for instance, is a kind of mini documentary. That's how we're doing it now. It's a mini documentary. We bring 2 items and we explain. But in the new format, Close Up will be a discussion format, a live discussion format. So the host like you will bring the reporters in, an expert will join, and we discuss ideas. So that's more engaging. And we have ample format, by the way, the 9 families, point of view. This kind of formats are where not only we, but the audience and the experts comes in and join in our conversation. You know, for years, I don't know why we came this way. Mickey might react. In the very beginning, there was a sense of critical point of presentation of the content, you know, whether you call it in local issues or in continental issues. But through times, we kind of changed it to a PR way of presentation of contents, you know. Most of the time, we focus on the positive things, but we don't give in-depth analysis of it. But this time, we have to change that trend. Our aim is to establish and present Ethiopia and the continent at a bigger perspective. But we do tell we do tell negative stories in a way to build our content of Ethiopia.
I have to come to you, Bezaid. So you're heading the program department, the program desk in English language, and I think that's a lot of responsibility. And I'm hoping there are a lot of new changes, new things that are to come through the new format. So take us through that change.
As Zahai has rightly said, when we think of a new content reform, what we did was to do a gap analysis. In the gap analysis, we interestingly found that most of our contents were, to the target, and they were interesting. We didn't find much of the problem in the content and in the name of the programs as well. Much of the problem was in the presentations, the presentation techniques and the production methods we use. So we had 7 programs in English department where we talk about Ethiopia, Africa, and issues related to global economics and political issues. So now what we wanted to change and what we have lined up for the new English language channel is to bring those programs without changing their names, to bring those programs in a new presentation format that would appeal to the audience, the targeted audience. We have framed that this dialogue into it will maintain that discussion format, but it has to focus on current issues, an in-depth analysis of current issues, what's happening around within the country and within the continent, and also globally. We'll also have Meet EBC. Meet EBC was a studio discussion format in which all of us admire, actually. So Meet EBC will continue to be a discussion format program, but it doesn't necessarily have to focus on current affairs. It brings in people, diplomats, politicians, artists, and entrepreneurs to talk about their accomplishments, to talk about their perspectives, without necessarily focusing on a certain current issue. We'll also have the New Africa. Miki and Zahai have been saying much about Addis being the seat of the diplomatic seat of the continent. So we have much resources there. We've been trying to give insights about what is happening in Africa, what's happening inside the big continental organ, the African Union. So now we'll have the new African format. It used to be limited to 20 minutes. Now it will be expanded to 30 minutes. And it incorporates 3 segments. Tsahai was mentioning about, or she already said much about Adwa, one of the segments of the New Africa, and also the diplomat would be another segment we will incorporate in the New Africa format, and also there will be inside AU segment where we discuss what is happening inside AU, thereby communicating the goals, aspirations, agendas of the African Union to the people of Africa and the world. We will also have Ethiopia Today. As we can understand from the name, it talks about it used to cover issues related to current status of Ethiopia in terms of economics, politics, and also social issues. Now it used to be a mini documentary format program. Now we'll make it a magazine format program. We will have 2 segments incorporated into the new, Ethiopia Today. So one is called Vision 2025. Vision 2025 is much related with Ethiopia's ambition of reaching a middle income status country by the year 2025. So anything that is being done to help Ethiopia achieve that target will be covered under this segment called Vision 2025. And also we'll have Investors Cafe, where we will bring in investors that are engaged in different sectors of investment in Ethiopia to show what doing business is like in Ethiopia, the comparative and competitive advantages, the platforms created, and also the incentives that will be given for investors coming to invest in Ethiopia will also be covered in Investors Cafe. We'll also have another program called the new, Colorful Ethiopia. Colorful Ethiopia has been a weekly show. It was an entertainment show focusing on music, culture, and art. It will maintain its name, but will have 4 segments incorporated into that program. We will air 3 of the 4 segments per episode. So we have Kaleidoscope, where we will cover cultural events, music events, and festivals happening across Ethiopia to the audience. We'll also have Your Corner. Your Corner is allotted for the reflection, of tourists coming into Ethiopia, and they will tell us what they have experienced while staying in Ethiopia, what they have seen, their impressions, and also many things will be discussed. And then we will have Your Kitchen, where foreigners residing in Ethiopia will prepare us their cuisines, their dishes, blending it with Ethiopian dishes or by their own. We'll also have another segment in Colorful Ethiopia that is called Speak Ethiopian, where we aim to teach basic languages of Ethiopia. So we will we will try to teach some basic greetings and things like that in that content. We'll also have another program called African Beat, exclusively dedicated for playing African songs across the continent. We'll have a presenter much knowledgeable about African music, so that he could discuss and also he could entertain our audiences with African songs. We have Explore Ethiopia, one of the favorite programs of many of our audiences. It used to cover tourism attractions of Ethiopia, the historic attractions, the natural blessings of Ethiopia, all the wonders of Ethiopia used to be covered under this program. Now what we've done is we've expanded it to 30 minutes. It will take travel documentary format. It will come every month to showcase what Ethiopia has in the tourism sector. And last but not least, we have also a program called EBC Documentary, where we entertain a selected issue, a very serious one, usually to discuss about what is going on in the country and also in the continent. So I hope all these things would bring in a tremendous change in ABC languages and would make the channel a much more chosen channel, an easy to follow channel, where people would tune in to find information about Ethiopia, about Africa and the whole world, and I mean get insights about all those things.
That was wonderful. I mean, it was a bit a lot to process, but I heard a lot of interesting things coming from there. Like, yeah, a lot can be enjoyed, I believe. So we'll be coming after a break, and we'll be talking about the other things related to the new channel. Don't go anywhere.
The English transmission of our new ETV Languages channel will bring you news and programs with new formats, 4 hours each day, 7 days a week.
Follow our 3 major news packages every day on our ETV Languages channel.
The first news package of the day comes to you at 11 a.m., bringing you the major news of the day.
Our prime time news hour, Addis News Hour, will bring you in-depth and local and international news from an African point of view. Don't miss it every night from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m.
The third news package of the day, The Headquarter, is all about our continent, Africa. News and analysis will await you every single night from 10:30. The Headquarter is all about African voices from the seat of the African Union.
Our new formats are also full of news programs that put fresh perspectives to your understanding. The Horn, Nile families and Viewpoint will bring you details of the happenings in a way you may seize it from African perspectives.
Our flagship news programs, Close Up, Explore Ethiopia and Meet ETV will also come to you with new presentations.
Our weekly programs that touch the political, economic and social issues of the country and the continent Africa will also come to you afresh.
Investors Cafe, The Diplomat, Your Corner and much more.
Follow us wherever you are on ETV Languages, our new channel.
ETV English transmission,
coming to you closer.
We've been mentioning these things, what is to come and what has happened, actually what has transpired through the periods that ETV, EBC and the present day, the now to come ETV language, especially the English department. So yeah, somehow we were nostalgic about the things, like we were mentioning programs and shows. That's all right, but I have this thing. We haven't touched upon one point, the rationale behind the format. I know the need is very vast, but are there any particular thing that necessitated the change of the working on the formats, the new formats?
Given the mission the foreign language department have, I think it's even need to have a 24/7 channel, by the way. Given the mission it has, because the mission is bigger, as we've been saying. It's all about bringing Ethiopia and Africa more closer to the whole world. So it's a big agenda. So in a country like us, which is developing, and Africa is a big continent with full of good stories and new perspectives and challenges, we need to have a 24/7 channel. But given the situation we are in, we have to have we need to think of the resource and everything the media have. So we are at least expanding the airtime. So when we expand, we need to have new format in terms of content and presentation, like we've been mentioning. So the current audience we are having is not the type of audience we've been listening or hearing for the last years. it needs to be engaged. Different ideas and perspective has to come to the media as well. So that's the major reason.
On that note, I believe Mickey want to weigh in, because when you weigh in, actually, I want you to give us a glimpse on the positive as well as if you have a negative side. If you want to call on the pitfalls, call on them. Tell us on that.
Well, first, I'm very pleased to hear that ETV English is going through this format change. It's actually long overdue. It's always, this media is always dynamic. The issues are dynamic, and media responds to that dynamism. So it's good that also you did this after undertaking some gap analysis kind of survey. So I believe, although I haven't seen the format as a whole, but from the discussion, I believe that this is going to be great. It's good to build on that. And you have tried to have a plethora of, items, news programs, interactive ones, bringing in experts. So this is great. I think more than the news and entertainment, I believe ETV English need to focus more analysis, more bringing in-depth story of both Ethiopia and the region.
All right.
Because we have a lot of wonderful stories, human interest stories. So what the audience, the English audience, craves to hear a lot, not the news as such, although news is also very important, but an in-depth look into the issues beyond the news. What contributed to the happening of these new events. So going to the ground, meet the people who make the news and are affected by it.
All right.
And also see the region as a whole. Ethiopia has a very big role to play in this region. It's playing a very huge role in peacekeeping, in economic integration, very huge mega projects, being undertaken. So what does this mean to Africa? And how is Ethiopia playing its role in voicing Africa's concerns globally? So by bringing in people in the know, you will have a more in-depth look into the issues. The foreigners can get the facts anyway, and also entertainment from other media outlets, but we have a very unique role to go into the ground, bring out what is unique and what should be highlighted. So I think to do that, I believe introducing a kind of specialization or beat reporting would be great, because you will always be at the you will keep your fingers at the pulse of the nation and of the continent. So the reporter or the producer who will be assigned to a certain beat will know the issues definitely, because he's always on top of it. Will know very well his contacts, will be known by them, by the resource persons, will be trusted, will be credible, because he's not going to ask silly questions because he knows his subject. And also there will be a time when the resource persons also will need him, because he will be there to give them the chance to air their viewpoint and also to correct whatever is misrepresented. So he will not only receive but also give. Therefore, it's like a kind of turning the reporter into a kind of expert on a certain issue. That doesn't mean he or she doesn't have to know everything, because the journalist should try to know a bit of everything. but I think there's a need for specialization because there's a need for in-depth look into issues. Thank you.
All right.
May I mention something here?
Oh, you can mention it.
Okay. Just to add what Miki said, you know, the basic thing is we are established to promote the country in the continent at large. So our mission is not entertaining, as Miki said, by the way. Our mission is to give information to the type of audience we are serving. So that's why most of our formats are geared towards that part, giving information, not entertaining. We do only have Colorful Ethiopia in African Beat. African Beat is open for outsource. Anyone who's interested in African Beat, anyone who's specialized in African music and art can join us and you know, present in that segment. And Colorful Ethiopia is informative, I would say, and at the same time a little bit of entertaining. Other than that, all of our programs are very serious. They are more open. There is no kind of strict kind of format where you can bring in any kind of agenda and fit in a certain type of presentation. We do have different kind of presentation styles so that it gives room for the audience to be engaged and informed at the same time.
All right.
I assure you that I will be available as much as I can.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to have you.
By the way, to your analysis, expertise on different points. Especially, I heard the issue of the horn interests you a lot. So
very much.
That's one great deal for the department as well.
Well, we are in the horn. So.
All right, we are in the horn. All right.
We should be interested in it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up our journey through the Veteran Media House in Ethiopia and what it is coming up with. I hope you have all the pleasure of being informed on Ethiopian diplomacy, politics, tourism, and lifestyle through the news and programs to come. That's goodbye from me, Abraham Asrat, the host of this special program.